Rev up your engines!
Now everybody's whining about the supply chain. We can't get this, can't get that right. Well, there's a veteran trucker out there who's explaining why it really is the way it is, and he says it's greed. One of the main reasons there aren't enough trucks to pick things up and truckers is because the drivers don't get paid enough. They've been paying them less and less over years. All these companies love it. Let's have driver operators where they own their own truck. We don't have to even take care of the truck, and we'll just pay them as little as we possibly can. I knew guys back in the day who worked for big oil companies in Houston as independent truckers. Sometimes it would take them 6 months to get paid by these giant corporations, right? But what choice did they have? They're a little company and that's a big company, and they just take advantage of their position. And this trucker also said not only are not enough drivers, that when they do show up, they don't have enough containers there to fill the stuff up. So if guys show up, they don't get any jobs because there's no container to hook up to their 18-wheel. It's such a mess in California that now the containers are being abandoned in residential areas. In LA and Long Beach, giant ports, they're planning on imposing fines on the people who do that. You'd think there'd be something set up in the first place. Of course, you can imagine the bureaucracy that follows anything. This driver, you go to the ports, there's 3 lines you gotta wait in. One is to get in, one is to get your container, and another one is to get out. And he said it can be a horrendous mess. Pick up a load and go. And of course, the drivers aren't paid for sitting and waiting. That's how it goes. Let's give you a kind of similar analogy. You're flying in a plane, right? You ever wonder, hey, how come they're closing the door and we're waiting on a tarmac for an hour? Guess what? When that door's closed, those people are starting to get paid. They want you in the plane with the door closed because then their clock is ticking and they're getting paid. These truck drivers don't get paid unless they're driving. So, of course, a lot of these licensed drivers, they're saying, I'm leaving this. Doesn't pay enough. Something I saw years ago in Houston. This guy's doing my neighbor's lawn with Chem lawn, right? And he comes and says, Scotty, hey, I watch all your videos. He said, I used to be the #1 mechanic at the Chrysler dealer in town fixing automatic transmissions, but they treated me so bad and the pay got so low that I quit, and I'm making more money spraying Chem lawn on people's lawns than I did working as a mechanic at the dealership there. You start treating your workers bad enough, guess what? They're going to leave. Guys are going to factories, construction site jobs, and warehouses that pay similar wages that they're paying the truckers. And you don't have to work 70 hours a week and sleep in your truck. You know, come on, that's a dirty job. I feel sorry for those guys. And then they're waiting at the port for hours and hours, not getting paid for that. If you add it all together, kind of reminds me of a customer of mine who drove for Uber in Houston. I said, hey, did you ever really figure out what you're making on this? The lady said, well, Scotty, I gotta admit, I'm so depressed because I figured it out once with depreciation, insurance, gas, what she said, I'm basically making almost a little over minimum wage here. Driving my own car, doing an Uber. And these trucker guys, they're being screwed over by the corporations because they're big and they can screw them over. And now they're whining that nobody wants to do the job. Hey, get some of those fat cats. Let them get off their butts and drive these trucks around, see what it's like. So it's kind of like a giant rat's nest. People are abandoning the containers. People are being treated like scum, not paid enough. Sometimes they lose money. They get there, there's no container. They don't even get a job. They showed up, they're not even getting paid. Don't blame this thing on, oh, well, it's those lazy truckers. No, it's a ruined system where the people on the top make all the money and then they treat everybody else like scum and think that, oh, they'll take it forever. No, eventually they won't. And then you're going to have to find guys that are going to do those jobs. And you're going to have to pay them more. That's just how it goes. You can put the screws on these people long enough, eventually they're just going to walk. Hey, if they can make the same money in a warehouse, construction site, and there's all kinds of construction now, right? And all that time in a truck, sleeping in a truck at night, when they can live at home and have a normal job. I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. The reason that truckers used to make money is because it was a hard job and they worked their butts off, but they made good money. But then the rich guys decided, hey, they're making too much. Pay them less. What the heck? We don't have to. We're big. We can control these little guys. Now it's hitting them in the rear end. Lanny says, I have weird problems with my 2012 Scion TC. My friend took the car and took it from 60 miles an hour and put it in first gear. It ran, then the head gasket blew. I took it apart, and 4 rockers had come off. I can't find why the rockers came off. I only found the top shims. I haven't found the pieces. You should strangle your friend. You go down a road 60, okay? When you drive your car normally, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th gear, you shift them, right? The engine can only go so fast, because if you're running on the engine power, first gear will only go so many RPMs and no further. Then when you get it in second, it goes faster, and it gets to that same RPM, then it can't go further, you put it in third, and so on. If you're going 60 miles an hour, and he forced it into first gear, when he popped that clutch and put it into first gear, the engine completely over revved because it's physically connected to the wheels then when he put it in gear. So it went way over the rev RPMs and only put out so much power to go to so many RPMs. But if it's going 60 and you put it in first gear, it's going to physically be forced to go over those RPMs and do serious damage inside the engine. I mean, you're saying you can't find the rockers and stuff. I would never have attempted to fix that thing. With that kind of damage done, I would have just gotten a used engine. It's a Scion TC. There's a million Toyota engines that will fit in that thing. I would have gone to a junkyard, bought a used engine, put it in. I would have never taken it apart because so much damage can be done inside, and those have variable valve timing, and there's so much stuff that could have been damaged from him driving it like that. I would strangle the guy. I'd make him pay for the engine if he has any money, because he obviously ruined your car. But when it get to that stuff, don't fix it. Don't fix it. Get another engine. Don't even go any further if I were you. You don't know what's what, where pieces are inside the engine. You put it back together and it'll blow up again. It's not worth fixing when they were damaged that bad, because the engine was forced to go faster than it could even run on its own. But like I say, you're going 60 miles an hour and you put it in first gear, the engine's going to spin as fast as 60 miles an hour until something breaks. That's just what's going to happen. Well, if you got an electric car and you're worried about it starting on fire, those lithium batteries are dangerous, there's an Austrian firm, Rosenberger, and they're making a fire extinguisher system that you can have put in your car, just like with boats, so you don't burn down to the hull and drown because your boat burnt down. The system is a unit that can be placed under the vehicle, the firemen hook it up, and then it sprays the water under it the right way to put it out better. And if the car's on its side or on its roof turned over, they can put the device on top of it, wherever they need to put the fire out, with a system that directly filling the battery with water, so it'll be able to put it out. And this also allows the firemen to put it away 25 feet away from the vehicle with these hoses and extensions, so it's not dangerous for them. Now, the only problem here is they got to buy these things in the fire department, right? Who's going to pay for that? And they say the device can be left on the vehicle while it's transported, because sometimes they start on fire again. The other day I was driving down Rhode Island, I saw one on fire, and it was on a transport, and it was burning like mad. High flames were coming out of it. But of course, here we go again. Who's paying for this stuff? If it's the fire department's, what? Then they got to get it back, and are they paying for it, or are you paying the service for it? The idea is great. The implementation of it, imagine the money would have to be spent. Each fire department's got to get one of these things. And that's the problem with electric cars. All the infrastructure doesn't exist. You probably have to spend billions buying all these things for all the fire departments to put them out. Who's going to pay for that? Nobody thinks this stuff through. A great idea, I can put them out, but hey, would they add it to your insurance premium? Well, you got an electric car, now you got to pay for this, because the fire departments have to buy these expensive machines, so your insurance premium for your electric car is going to be sky high because you got to pay for all this stuff. Now, does anybody even think about how much this stuff is going to cost and who's going to pay for it? No, I really don't think they do. Great technology, but hey, who's going to pay for it? How are these fire departments all going to buy this stuff? These local fire departments here on the East Coast, they're small. They don't need money to buy something like that. Well, if you think things go slow here in the United States, take a trip to Italy. There was a car parked in the same spot for 47 years, and they finally towed it away. Hey, we'd take a nap, but we'd take to it later. 47 years it sat there. In 1974, somebody parked this car in front of a newsstand. It's in the town of Conegliano. It was a 1962 Lancia Fulvia. He had that business in 1962. That was his work car, right? Well, when they retired, he just left it there. People take selfies in front of the car over the years. It's a landmark, right? A local landmark. And the only reason they towed it away is because now they're eliminating car parking on the street. You know, they want to stop cars everywhere, right? They had to get rid of it because they're eliminating all the parking on the street. But the car wasn't crushed. It was put on display in an auto show, and they're going to do it over as a museum piece. And when it's finally restored, it's going to be at home in these gardens of the Enological School. And interestingly enough, it's next door to this guy and his wife who ran the newsstand all those years, who are retired, so they can look out their window and look at their car. They park a car in Italy. See if it'll sit there for 47 years and nobody does anything about it. FMade604 says, Scotty, I got 2013 Toyota Venza. I live in Orlando. I drive 700 miles a week. I change the oil and filter every 5,000 miles. What other fluid should I change? Every time I get an oil change, try to sell me stuff, but it runs fine. What should I do? You're taking care of it. And if you're driving 700 miles a week, I'm assuming it's highway mileage, that's only equivalent to 10% of city driving. You got 116,000 miles, those things can last forever. And if most of that's highway mileage, that's more like, less than 20,000 miles of hot stop and go city driving. So you want to change your transmission fluid maybe every 60,000 on that, change the coolant every 7 years or 150,000 miles. The Toyota coolant lasts a long time. But you're doing the right thing. You're taking care of it. Change the air filter when it's dirty. The spark plugs generally last 150, 200,000 miles. Check them once in a while. Then when they are worn, change them and put in the iridium plugs and they'll last just as long again. That's the problem with these oil change places. You know, they can change your oil, but they're always trying to sell you stuff because the guys get a commission for everything they sell. And you can say, you know, I got a regular mechanic, but he doesn't like changing oil. You can change my oil, but don't try selling me a bunch of stuff or I'll go away and I'll go someplace else. And if they know that, hey, and if they still try to sell you stuff, then find another place until you find one where they're honest. There's a few honest people out there. But most of them, they're out to make a commission. They're going to try to sell you a bunch of crap because that's how they make money. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.